right, you guys. All right, I got a question for you. What do you guys fight about? Tell me, what do you fight about?
Money.
Money.
Driving.
Our future kid's name.
And I don't do the laundry every day.
Alarm clocks.
Or when you have all day at home to do laundry or do the dishes.
All day, and I'm not working. I'm not working at all.
Like, I have no say.
Ryan just sets one alarm, and I like to set an alarm every half hour. 7 to 10 alarms.
Just throughout the night.
When you don't clean your car.
I thought always that we would just make it work for probably the first year of the marriage.
Cleanliness.
My first alarm clock would go off, and then I'd go downstairs and sleep on the couch for all my other alarm clocks. That's how we solved that problem, by sleeping on the couch.
You're making me sound like a real nice guy.
Let the people decide.
Did I say money?
Yes.
Money tops the list. There's more fights in marriage about finances than any other topic. What else? Schedules. Right?
Pick a restaurant to eat at.
Okay, very specific, yes, the restaurant you're going to eat at tonight. Isn't it true we fight about anything and everything? I mean, generally speaking, it takes very little for the fur to fly in most marriages. And that's why conflict, do you know how to fight a good fight? This is an important question, a really valuable skill set, how to manage conflict. We had one of our all-time, crazy fights early on in our marriage in the city of San Francisco.
Yeah, one of those defining fights. Do you guys have one of those in your story where, it happened?
You don't have them yet, but you will. It's just inevitable.
It is inevitable. Well, for us, it happened right in the midst of a really fun time. That's when I hate it the most, right? When it interrupts a fabulous moment and all of a sudden conflict. We were with some friends and we had a vacation weekend in San Francisco. First time for all four of us to go explore that great city. So we had this to-do list of everything we wanted to get done, and we drive into town. The first thing on our list is ride a cable car, because that's what you do in San Francisco. So we head right downtown, go to the station where you catch the cable car, and we get in this gigantic line with everyone else who had that on the top of their list. So
wait, let me interrupt for just a second. How many of you have ridden a cable car in San Francisco? Oh, a lot of you. Okay. Well, you've all done something we haven't done. So I cleared up.
Clear that up. Okay. We're waiting in the line, and Pam and I, my girlfriend, we're talking. We don't care. We'll talk in line. We'll talk anywhere. It's no big deal to us. But the men were not feeling as patient right then because they had this to-do list and wanted to whittle it away. And so you suggested.
Well, I said, let's just go up to the top of the hill, and we can just jump on when it crests the top of the hill. And they said, "Are you sure you can do that?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." And so they started marching up the hill with me, and I was confident because I'd seen the old Rice-A-Roni commercial, so I knew you could do this, right? And
and we're feeling great that, okay, great, we're traveling with someone who gets the inside scoop. We don't know nothing about how this works. So Pam and I resume our conversation. We're headed up the hill. You get to a corner and say, "This looks good," and we all stop and wait. And so Pam and I are just chatting away. All of a sudden, we hear our guy say, "Here comes the cable car," and we're like, "Great, finally, here it is." And so we're kind of chatting, and then all of a sudden we notice the cable car is gone, and so are our husbands. And we're like, "What happened?" And so you guys had jumped on it, and gone a couple blocks up
we
the
realized
road.
you guys didn't get on, so we hop off, we come back down, we said, "What happened to you guys? Why didn't you get on?" And Leslie said, "It was just so crowded, and I thought it was going to stop." And we said, "No, it doesn't stop.
We were waiting for the stop.
You got to jump on. You got to be aggressive, be assertive here and jump onto this
And we're like, "There's nowhere to jump." And they go, "Yeah, you just push people aside and grab on. That's just what everyone does." So we're like, "Okay, Pam, total go-getter." She's like, "Okay, I get it now. I'm ready." And so now we're not really talking. We're waiting for the next cable car. She is totally focused. I mean, she is on it. And so finally it comes, and we're all lined up, and it sort of slows down, and you and Randy go to jump on.
We get on, no problem.
Yeah,
Pam overjumps.
Totally hits it wrong and falls. So Leslie, she's in danger. I back up because I don't want her to fall on me, and Les pulls her out from underneath where she would have gotten run over by the cable car, and Randy rides it 2 blocks up the street again, realizes none of us are on, jumps off, comes running back. When he gets there, of course, Pam's sitting on the curb. She's now got a giant hole in her jean. She's got a bloody knee. And Les is like, "Check out your wife." And so he's like, "Pam, are you going to be okay?" And she's like, "I think so." And he goes, "Okay, let's catch the next one." I'm a bit traumatized because I don't like injury and risk, and there's my friend hurting, and I'm feeling bad for her, and all this isn't just working
so
for me.
Leslie says, I don't think we should do this. I said, listen, I've got on this thing 2 out of 2 times. I said, I know I can get on. I said, let's make this easy. Just hold on to my arm, and as long as you can trust me, I get on, you will get on. And she goes, I don't know if that's a good... I said, can you just trust me? She said, okay, I'll trust you. And so we wait, and Randy and Pam kind of have their own little meeting about it too, and their own strategy. And anyway, the cable car, this is the 3rd time, comes along, and we start running toward the cable car, ready to jump on. As we're running, Leslie starts pulling me, and she goes, it's not gonna work, call it off, you know? And by this time, I've jumped up on the cable car, and she goes, we're not gonna make it. I said, we've made it, but she's so full of adrenaline and anxiety, she yanks me off of the cable car and hops off herself and said, see, we didn't make it. I am so infuriated. I just yell out I just shouted it, and I said, I have a brain, you know. It seemed like important information at the time. And then I shouted out, all you had to do was trust me. And I yelled that out. And Leslie hollered something back at me I've never let her forget. And she said in this really high-pitched voice, this is years ago, she hollered back at me and she said, I trust God for my safety, I don't trust you. Like, who says that? So spiritual, I mean, wow. Trusting God.
Authentic.
And so everybody on the back of the cable car is now cranking their necks and looking at us, see who has the big brain and who's trusting God. And Randy and Pam, they finally hopped off and came back and saw we were going at it, and they did one of these numbers. Ooh, leave them alone, you know. And you know, thank goodness we don't have fights like that very often. I can't remember another fight like that, actually, but it's just inevitable.
Yeah,
We're
they
gonna have
happen.
fights.
I mean, life happens, conflict happens.
Yeah, and maybe you won't have a fight like that, but you will have fights if you haven't had them already. It's just part of life. In fact, my favorite verse in all of Scripture on conflict, Romans 12, verse 18, says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, try to live at peace with everyone. Isn't that a good verse? You know why I like it so well? I don't know of another verse in all of Scripture that has more qualifiers in it than that single verse. Even Scripture's acknowledging it's inevitable. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, try, give it a shot, do what you can, you know. But conflict is going to happen. It's just the way it is.
One thing we fight about all the time is whether or not she trusts me when she asks for advice on her outfits.
I hated how she never puts empty garbage bag back in the garbage can, you know, when she takes the garbage out.
When I'm driving, Leslie will often make this noise. That's the one.
Does this look good?
Okay,
yeah,
that
it looks
is
great.
true.
You said that slowly.
And I get really frustrated and I just start putting the garbage around the garbage.
It just makes me feel great just hearing it.
And I can't help it because I think I'm gonna die.
Here she is. She's still alive.
Right. Now, let me give you another thing that you can do, and this one I think is the most important, the one that we use the most frequently. We have taught this to literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of couples over the years. We know this works. It's called sharing withholds. Every day, in every marriage, there's information that we withhold from one another. Not because we're secretive or we're private, it's just that we're traveling at the speed of life and we don't get to talk about everything. So we have positive withholds, we have negative withholds. Positive withholds.
Yeah, I mean, they happen all the time. Like, recently I had this moment where I happened to walk in the room right when you were having a great conversation with one of our boys, and it was like I walked in the midst of brilliance. Like, it was a parenting issue that I had truly been pondering, and he addressed it, and it went great, and I was so, you know, just like totally admiring you. But I'm not going to say anything in front of our son because that'd be awkward. So I thought, I'll tell you later. And then I just got busy, and time went on, and I forgot.
So it was a compliment toward me that I never heard.
Right.
That's a negative, or rather a positive withhold. I'm guessing that happens a lot with me. All the time, right? Yeah, it goes both ways. We all do this.
Right.
Positive things, I think, oh, I see Leslie, she's coming down to something, she has a beautiful dress on. I think, oh, she looks, I'm just about ready to give her a compliment. I think, oh, where are my car keys? And I get distracted maybe, or something like that, right? We withhold positive information sometimes. Also negative withholds. Maybe we're out to dinner with friends, we're joking around, I say something I think is kind of funny, everybody laughs. but underneath it, you felt like it was a little bit of a zinger. It kind of stung a little bit. Well, she's not going to confront me in front of our friends. That'd be awkward. And she's going to wait till we get home. Well, it's midnight when we get home, and she's thinking I'll tell him in the morning, but I'm off to work early or whatever it is, and it just, the negative feeling gets buried. And by the way, what happens to negative feelings that we bury? You bet. They have a high rate of resurrection, okay? And they pop up when we least expect them, and we go, whoa, where did this come from? Have you ever felt like you stepped on a landmine in your relationship sometimes? And it's because there's something negative buried there. And so this little exercise, sharing withholds, is designed to bring these to the surface. It takes you maybe 5 minutes out of your week. And if you put this into practice, you'll see the level of tension drop and the level of intimacy increase. Here's how it works. One of us just simply says, would you like to share withholds?
Yeah, and so if you get invited to do that, what that means is we're going to take a minute and just think about a couple of examples of things that have happened recently, like in the last couple days, last 48 hours, 2 positives and 1 negative. You know, just stuff I haven't had a chance to tell you. And so both of us will agree that, yeah, we'll share withholds, and we'll take a minute and write a couple down.
And sometimes, we've been doing this for years, even to this day, sometimes, let's just say, hey, you want to share withholds? And I'll think for a second, I'll go, I don't have any withholds. You know, we've talked about everything. And then we just give it a few minutes, and eventually you realize, oh, I have to limit it to just these 3. Okay, because it just takes, even think right now, what's one positive withhold that's happened in the last 48 hours, you know, that you haven't talked to your partner about?
Yeah, because they're kind of lingering just outside your conscious awareness. But if you take a minute and just remember, things will surface.
Right, so we write these down. We each have our little list of 3. And do you want to demonstrate this?
Sure.
So we would share these back and forth with each other.
So, well, we left in kind of a hurry yesterday to come on this trip. And so I was just appreciating so much when I walked back in after the school drop-off with all the chaos of getting our dog and everything put away. You had cleaned the kitchen I'd left in chaos, wiped down the counters, loaded the dishwasher, and it made me feel so good knowing they were coming home to a clean house.
Okay. And so in the by the way, that didn't happen. But I'm getting the message loud and clear up here. So. Nicely played. Yeah.
Always a treat.
Leslie's having her own little seminar up here. But if it had happened, I would respond with 2 words, and those 2 words are, thank you. That's all. Just thank you. I don't explain it or anything else. I just thank you, all right? Then she would share a negative withhold.
Yeah, and you're not going to be surprised by this, but recently when you were going through the bills for the month, you took your Sharpie to the Visa again and circled all of my Starbucks charges.
Right.
And left it on my desk with a big question mark.
Right.
And I got my feelings hurt because we've talked through this multiple times. And for me, you know, it's just like one of those non-negotiables. That's where I have a small group. I do my writing there. There's so many things I value that happen there that the cost is inconsequential.
That did happen. How convenient. And so, again, I respond with 2 words. Those 2 words are, not I'm sorry, because I may not be sorry yet, okay? Just thank you. In other words, thank you for sharing the information. That's all this is an exercise in sharing the information, okay? And then she would share another positive withhold. We're going to forego that for right now. And then it would be my turn to share my 3 withholds. And by the way, we've learned through experience that the person who goes second needs to stick with their 3 original withholds. Okay? You follow me? So I would share my 3 withholds. Now, here's the real important part of this thing. For the next 30 minutes, those negative withholds are off limits. For the next half hour, we don't talk about the negative withholds. And it's not like we just sit there and look at each other, okay, you know, 10 more minutes, you're going to get it, you know, but it's not like that. It's just that we go on with life. Most of the time, I don't even think we come back to them.
Often
it's just
we
enough
don't.
To be heard.
But the point of that time is it totally rearranges your reaction to that.
Yeah.
Because it changes your response.
What happens in that 30-minute time? Well, yeah, exactly. It diffuses. You go from kind of what would you call it? Like
Yeah, you just go from reacting to responding because you've had time to let that initial reaction sort of blow by, and now you're responding at a deeper level, and you're not as defensive, and so it's just a much softer conversation.
Right, it creates what they actually call a soft onset. And so, like we said, you may not even come back to them unless you want to. But man, I'm telling you, you do this, again, carve a groove into your relationship. Make this what we sometimes call a honeymoon habit, something you do right from the beginning. And you will see that you've built in this incredible little skill that allows you to increase intimacy while diminishing conflict because it keeps it at bay. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, try to keep the peace with everyone, especially your spouse. Yeah, and so this sharing withholds deal, you're gonna really uncover it in depth in the workbook because it goes step by step how to do this, gives you more examples, and then helps you apply it to your life. But the point is to make it a habit. That's why the great philosopher Phyllis Diller said this about conflict. She said, never go to bed mad, stay up and fight. Pretty good quote. Somebody else with a little more insight, Carl Jung, said, conflict is like fire. He says it has two aspects, that of burning and that of shedding light. And what we want to help you do right out of the gate as you begin your journey of lifelong love is to learn how to shed light on your relationship even in the midst of conflict, to use it to your advantage. As we often say, conflict is the price we pay for a deeper level of intimacy. Let me say that again. Conflict, if you know how to fight a good fight, conflict becomes the price we pay for a deeper level of intimacy. But it all has to do with knowing how to do it.
Right, and what's so crucial about navigating conflict together is really understanding at a pretty deep level what to avoid when you're in the midst of conflict, because it really will destroy the bond you have. In fact, we know from research, it's pretty phenomenal, that how you fight is one of the most important things and what holds you together.
Predictors of success in marriage. This is, like I said, a valuable skill set.
Yeah.
If you were to walk out of our offices in Seattle, you wouldn't be too far from a canal that joins Puget Sound with Lake Washington. If you were to cross that canal, take a right, maybe a mile or so, you'd run into the University of Washington. And right there on that campus, for years, there's been a building, a pretty nondescript building that houses one of the most famous laboratories in all of marriage research. It's known as the Love Lab. Been there for about 30 years. A fellow by the name of Dr. John Gottman has run studies out of there. He's retired now, but boy, have his studies made an impact. What he did, he'd put an ad in the newspaper and invite couples to come in to basically a studio apartment for a day and live, except that be just like any other day, except they would be hooked up to biofeedback equipment. Their skin temperature would be measured, their muscle tension in their forehead with some electrodes up there, and heart rate and so forth.
Even blood labs that reveal things.
Exactly. Yeah. And a team of psychologists would be looking at them through mirrors and on video and so forth. And other than that, it's just like any other day for this couple, you know. And so they'd come in there and live, and he would be able to tell by looking at this, many, many couples, hundreds if not thousands of couples, he came to the conclusion that he could predict with a 94% accuracy rate.
Which is pretty stunning. Think about that, 94% accuracy rate.
Whether or not a couple would succeed or fail in marriage based solely on how they fight. Not whether they fight, not how often they fight, not what they fight about, just how they fight. That's what he was observing in this exchange, in this experiment.
Right, and through the research, what they did was identify 4 specific things that when they occur in the midst of our conflicts with our spouse, really do usher in doom for the relationship.
Yeah, he actually calls them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Right. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, because these usher in doom for a married couple. And so we want to know how to avoid them. What are they? The first of these is criticism.
I mean,
criticism.
simple as that. A critical comment is truly that destructive.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me, especially being a guy, is when I'm criticized, I just feel more deflated than anything. There's not much she can do that really gets me down other than when I'm like totally criticized.
I feel criticized when Rami doesn't make a statement about how good I actually am.
I feel criticized when I'm questioned.
Whether it's a personality thing or looks-wise, if he doesn't say that I look so fabulous, then I feel very criticized and I look at it on the negative side.
Why'd you spend your money that way? How come that thing didn't get done?
Or like the one thing I asked her to do that day that she wasn't working and I was.
Okay, not that specific.
Babe, can you please go to the bank today and just please deposit that money?
And I felt criticized.
And if you think about it, every conflict basically begins with a critical word, you know? You always make us late, or you never pick up your clothes, or you do this, or you do that. It's some kind of accusation. That's what sparks
Exactly.
a conflict.
A criticism. Here's one thing I love, though, just a little caveat that makes marriage so much more safe for me. He said it's okay to complain. Like, complaining is not a bad thing in marriage. You can be totally authentic. You can complain and whine, and that's actually good because it connects you. Just don't cross the line and criticize.
And criticism begins with you. You always, you never. Whereas complaining begins with I. I feel so frustrated when we're late to something that really matters to me. Right. So it sounds like just a little bit of semantics, but it's not.
It's not a game. There's a true difference in the spirit that receives it.
Defensiveness is the second thing you want to avoid. And that is only natural once you've been criticized, is to put up your shield, put up your guard, and defend yourself against.
Yeah, and you think, okay, if I can let you know that I'm not as bad as you think I am, obviously you just criticize me and I defend myself and I clear up your criticism, the argument's done, right? But what Goffin discovered is defensiveness never brings resolve. It always instead escalates the fight. Doesn't matter how right you are to defend yourself, it does not resolve.
And some of us get so well schooled in defensiveness, it's like our natural posture, just about almost anything. Have you seen my keys? I didn't touch them, you know? And we just get defensive about whatever it is that comes up in the relationship. Well, that leads to the third thing that you want to avoid, and that's contempt.
Contempt is a pretty deep thing. This is a little bit more serious. It's like criticism, but now you're going a level deeper. You're not just criticizing, but you're diagnosing the deficit in the person. Like, you always make us late because you're so irresponsible. You're diagnosing what's wrong with their character or their motivation behind it, and that is contemptuous. It lacks all respect.
And it's often very sarcastic, you know.
Could be humor, sarcastic
Way
humor.
to go, genius. Regular Einstein, aren't you? You know, that kind of stuff. Or even rolling our eyes at each other. In fact, women do this. Just roll your eyes at your man right now. Guys, have you ever seen that before? Now, the reason I had you do that in that direction is because we know from research that women will tend to do that more than men do, roll your eyes at your partner. And when you do, it looks like maybe a feather fell on his head. He didn't even notice it. I mean, it was just like nothing happened, didn't impact him at all. But when I've seen it in the Love Lab myself with Dr. Gottman, when he's hooked up to biofeedback equipment, you can tell, man, his blood pressure kicks in and that galvanic skin response, his muscles tense, he kicks into that fight or flight response. Even though on the outside, it kind of just looks like nothing happened at all.
I mean, we're savvy, right? We know when we're on the receiving end of contempt.
Yeah,
we get
sometimes
it.
even without saying a word, just roll into the eyes. That's contemptuous. In fact, some have said we ought to pass laws in Congress against contempt in marriage. This is like a toxin. It's like pouring poison on your relationship when we get to that contemptuous level. All right? That leads to number 4, which is stonewalling.
And stonewalling is a great word because it creates a word picture, right? It's like you've hardened your heart, you've shut down emotionally. It's like you've become a stone wall. You've stopped trying to be understood. You stopped trying to understand. You may not have left the conversation, but you're truly shut down emotionally, and that is stonewalling.
Yeah, and if you don't leave physically, you leave emotionally, and you'll hear guys especially say something like, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do it, right? What do you want me to say? I'll say it. And you guys, you know the feeling. It happens in your trapezius muscles up here, and you get this stiff neck, and you almost become like a stone wall. It's like, what do you want me to do? I'll do it, right? And that kind of pulling away from the relationship sends a powerful and poisonous message to your spouse. Right. Yeah. Okay, so those are the 4 things we want to avoid. And if you're sitting there going, uh-oh, we already have some of these, well, welcome to the club. We all have these to some degree or another.
From time to time.
On occasion. What he's looking at are the couples that don't know how to short-circuit this system. So a critical comment is made, well, here we go, set aside the next half hour, because we don't know how, it's like a freight train coming through our marriage. We don't know how to stop it. Those are the couples that he's really concerned about.
I am more of a stone wall, and my face just kind of goes blank, and I'm not saying much.
Which really stresses me out more.
He usually has to be the one that is right.
And I like to just stay quiet if I feel like I'm kind of pinned against a wall kind of a thing.
I don't want to escalate the situation by saying something wrong or doing something wrong, so I just kind of shut down.
Gets very defensive, I guess, and I'm very defensive as well.
Like, he has the tendency to shut down if he feels that he's gonna say something that might offend me.
It never goes anywhere.
No, I do need to know how you feel. If I don't know, I feel very insecure.
We have to eventually kind of walk away and take a breather, and then once we're both calm, come back and
hug it out.
Talk it out, talk it through, hug it out.
We almost laugh about it a little bit now, and it's cool because it's getting easier and better.
We figured it out.
We all do things just intuitively to manage conflict. We want to give you a few new things to put in your toolbox that will help you. The first one is super easy and practical. It's something that we call the conflict card. And you're going to love this, at least many of you will. It doesn't work for everybody, but because it kind of sounds trite at the beginning.
Again, simple tool that can really have a profound impact right at the moment you need it most.
Yeah, we literally have these little cards that we carry around in our wallets, a little plastic card that has this scale to rate the depth of your disagreement. And we can be fighting about how long the in-laws are staying for Christmas, or what color to paint the kitchen, or something like that.
Whatever.
And we used this not very long ago, but this is something that is so practical to rate how intense it is for my side of the line, how I'm feeling about it, right?
Exactly. It brings objectivity in the midst of a heated argument. So the scale goes from 1 to 10.
Yeah, so number 1 says, I'm not enthusiastic, but it's no big deal to me. Clear down to number 10, which is over my dead body, exclamation point, right? So somewhere along that gradation, you're going to find one that you identify.
Here's what's brilliant about this, because, you know, no matter what, usually someone in the relationship is more expressive than the other person. So it's sometimes hard to tell who genuinely feels more strongly about the issue. And so if you stop in the middle of an argument, like we recently had one about schedules.
Right.
And I was really pushing you hard on something, and you were not giving. So I said, okay, stop right now, 1 to 10. Where are you at on this? How strongly do you feel? And you said it was between a 7 and an 8. And I was totally stunned, because for me it was like a 3 or a 4, but I was just going for it, you know? So then I'm like, absolutely going to go the way you want it to, because you care deeply about it. I'm going to save my win for something that's genuinely a higher number for me, right? So it brings resolve, because it makes it clear and objective what's going on right now. And it just gets you out of that emotional thing and back into your rational brain about, okay, what's going on here between us?
Yeah, and if you want to get a copy of the conflict card, you know, you obviously found it in the book. It outlines it there. But if you want an actual copy, you can go to lessonleslie.com, download it there for free. So, but that's one thing, the conflict card. Make sense? Number 2 is something we call the XYZ formula.
Yeah, this is a great tool, because what it protects you from is criticism. And criticism, remember, is one of those major things you want to avoid, because it sparks those negative fights.
Yeah, so this is a way to turn a criticism into a complaint so it's more easily heard and accepted. This is just a way to phrase it so that they hear it. I'll give you an example. When we're driving down the road and you turn the radio station without talking to me first, I feel like I don't even matter to you. Situation X, when you do Y, I feel Z. That's very different than saying, who made you king of the radio, right? That's contemptuous. And so this little formula, you can remember in the heat of the battle, right?
Yeah, like when
Because
your
it's-
emotions are pretty raw, but you don't want to get that conversation headed the wrong way. If you just think, okay, XYZ, how can I say this right so that I won't derail us right now? It really is protective. So anyway, this is just a simple tool that really moves you in the heat of the moment from being tempted to launch into a criticism and gets you in that place where it's a softer onset with the complaint.
Yeah, so I really hope you're using the SIMBUS assessment, because when it comes to managing conflict, this page is a real eye-opener. In fact, one of the things it does is show you what you tend to fight about most, your hot topics. It'll give you the top 5 for each of you, so you're gonna enjoy that.